that? What's that? There's treachery in the air. What's that? What's that? I don't know what the words are to be. Today, episode of Treachery. Yeah, I could be a singer, boy. Don't play with me. Hey everybody, welcome to the channel of Lazy Brown Productions, where today we'll be doing a Tubi review. AKA, we'll be doing a Tubi Adventures, where I'll be going down the Tubi hole. Today we're doing Redwall, episode 3, and it's going to be called Treachery. Let's go ahead and jump into it and see what they got. Okay, so today's episode is pretty much, like I said, it's about treachery. So it kind of does a lot of back and forth between our heroes camp and Clooney's camp, who was the villain, and then they threw in a little extra kind of a bump in the road sort of villain. So bear with me as I kind of go back and forth. So let's go ahead and get started. Okay, so pretty much we start off the episode where it's old man Methuselah giving a sort of monologue about how, Clooney, you think that you have gotten the better of us because you have gotten our warrior Martin's tapestry. You think you destroyed our spirits? No, you have not. For our spirit is stronger, and that tapestry is more powerful than what you know it to be. And then we transition over to Clooney's camp, where he's going pretty much he's having a nightmare about what appears to be, in my opinion, it seems like it's a future telling of what's about to happen to him. And it seems like his nightmares is of that of pretty much the warrior Martin. And in my opinion, what is to be shown as kind of foreshadowing of Matthias pretty much taking up the sword or being the downfall of Clooney. But he doesn't take these nightmares as anything more than not even a bad omen, but more of like just nightmares as is. So to him, to kind of subside his terrors or of this omen, he said his best thing to do is to destroy Redwall and all of its residents. And then he collapses and then he turns around and says, but first I need to get a healer. And then we kind of switch back over. Oh, and before all that, he kind of calls his subordinates in there because when he wakes up from his nightmare, he goes, murder! Then unleashes all his anger out on the subordinates. Hey, look, as a subordinate, I'd be like, hey, look, man, just because you have nightmares, don't be taking that stuff out on me. Anyway, we switch back over to now we're at Redwall, where we see Corfella kind of just bolting to what appears to be to find somebody. And as she's walking, we kind of get a pan up of these stairwells that says Redwall. Hold that thought. And we see that she goes ahead and runs into Matthias. And she tries to tell him, like, hey, Bill, I see you had eaten, boy, but nah, I'm just talking. But nah, she does offer him food. She said it's been a while since he has eaten. Meanwhile, we see old man Methuselah. Yeah, I kind of have to remember his name, so I'm going to kind of veer off. But yeah, we see old man Methuselah kind of looking over the tapestry, and he sees something marked in dust. And when he sees that, he kind of uncovers it and calls Cornflower and Matthias over to come look at it. When they come over, they then look at it and it says, I am that is. And so they're trying to decipher the saying. And while doing that, Cornflower is, of course, preparing like a little snack for both of the mouses, or the brothers, because they're monks. And she starts playing a word game of how you can mismatch the words and make a sentence out of it. And she happens to make the word Matthias. But yeah, so Matthias is trying to figure out why is his name kind of etched into this thing, and the old man also believes that it's also meant for Matthias too. So the mystery of how this message that was written a long time ago is meant for Matthias, who's now in the present. So as they continue to look, they see that something's covered in dust. They uncover it and see these weird little markings that apparently is ancient script that they don't know how to translate it because it's the old times. So now we switch over to where Clooney is. And while we switch over to Clooney, we see this old fox. I guess she's supposed to be a medicine woman because she's also doing the little dance. And while she's doing the dance, her son is also preparing some things. And Clooney at that point sits here and says, "Oh, just give me the dang on herbs, gosh darn it." She goes like, "But without the magic, the herbs are pointless." And Clooney goes like, "Girl, unless you want you and your son to be off screen permanently, get me the medicine." Much says, "Sure, no problem." So she goes ahead, grabs the medicine, and while she grabs the medicine, Clooney goes over the plan to invade Redwall again. And while he has the plans, he pretty much kicks out his subordinates, and she gives him the medicine. So while he's sitting up here asking, does this medicine work? She says, yes, of course. And while the foxes weren't looking, he pours out the medicine. When he pours out the medicine, he then falls asleep, and then believing that the medicine had taken its effect, go over, grab the plants, and head on out. And while they're talking about like, who's an idiot now? Because apparently I guess he called them an idiot earlier. And as they leave out, thinking he's sleeping, I'm saying that, he kind of peek open his eye and says, pretty much like, "You guys are dummies." And then the story switches back over to Redwall. And there we see pretty much Cornflower had an idea of the word, pretty much the word associations, and it could mean Matthias. And she heads over to the stairwells from earlier that said Redwall, and she goes like, "Brothers, come here quickly. Come here, brothers." And so they head over to the stairs, and she notices like there's a certain letter in the stair that the stairs are labeled with, which is the letter W, which if you look backwards, it reads Matthias, it reads M. So they're saying like that must be M for Matthias. And on top of that, she also noticed that it makes a funny sound anytime you step on that particular step. So they figured there must be something behind there. So they give it their old try, and they can't do it. Luckily, some moles come by. And those moles coming by assist in saying like, "Hey, we got this. We can help you out." And then meanwhile, we have another jump to, we see that the foxes are on the outside coming into Redwall, where Constance lets them into the monastery. And in this little background, we see all this happening through the eyes of Clooney, who pretty much let his subordinates know that the plans that they have are just a fake, and to let the Redwall residents guard down while we work on the real plan, which is we're gonna dig a hole and come up underneath. Nothing could go wrong there. And so he kind of warns them. Well, actually, he doesn't warn them. He just tells them, "Get to digging." Like Martin, "Get to stepping." So they start digging. So now we head back over to Matthias' group. And when we head over to Matthias' group, we see that they have entered some passageways. Oh, by the way, the moles kind of figured out how to move it, and it looked like Cornflower was the only one who could really understand the moles. But anyway, so they're in the passageways, and they come across this room that has a giant M on it, which I'm guessing that is Martin's tomb. You know, the M kind of gives it away. And they kind of head on in there. Anyway, so then we head back over into another scene where we see Constance going over the plans that the foxes had given them with Brother Mathis. And while they discussed it, Constance pretty much says this ain't the real plans. And Brother Math is like, well, what you mean? She says, this is too easy. There's no way that he would do something this sloppy. This is a fake out. He goes like, are you sure? She goes like, yes. And especially coming from those foxes who will do anything for money, I don't trust it. Honestly, Constance is my favorite. She is the perfect down-to-earth kind of balances out the old man monk style, because so far what I'm seeing, they avoided a lot of trouble with her backing everything. Because, look, I respect the old monk and wanting peace, but God, it's annoying sometimes. Because here's the thing. Constance then tells Brother Mathis that, well, he does say, well, what should we do with the plans? And she says, we need to launch a counterattack. This is the part that kind of got on my nerves. Brother Mathis is like, I will not accept such a thing. That is unbecoming of us, especially unprovoked. Dude, they lay siege to your home. I don't know how much more provocation they need to do for you to say, we probably should start attacking now. Especially with something like this. But again, I get it, he doesn't want violence. But that was just kind of... We then head over to pretty much Clooney and his men grabbing a bunch of shovels and getting ready to dig after Clooney tells them, dig! And they kind of spoiled it earlier, but the real plan was for them to dig underneath Redwall and to begin the attack that way. So then we switch again over to Matthias' group going inside the tomb. They start looking around, and honestly, they sit here and say Cornflower and Old Man Methuselah talk about how Matthias bears resemblance to Martin. And as they were talking, the door shuts, pretty much locking them in there. And that's when Old Man Methuselah sees Martin's shield, and he sees the belt, and he tells Matthias, like, hey, yo, try this on. He goes like, oh no, I can't. And that's when Cornflower pretty much says, yoink, puts it on him, and he looks good, I'm not gonna lie. But unfortunately, the sword isn't there. They then worry about, well, how are they gonna get out of the room? Luckily for them, Basil comes along, opens up the door, and says, rightio, good chumps. I was told that you might be down here, so let's go ahead and dip on out. So, Basil to the rescue, they head on out. They then go upstairs where they see Constance and the old monk, Father Abbott, discussing what are their next course of actions. So, as they're discussing it, Constance remembers that she left the foxes by themselves and worried. Old Man Methuselah explains, hey, listen, I'll go check on the foxes. You two come to an understanding of what our next course of action needs to be. So then we shift over again. I told you there's a lot of shifting back and forth. It goes pretty well, but revealing this is a monkey's uncle. Anyway, so we shift back over to Clooney's men pretty much. They built the hole, and they're still building the hole, but it's enough to where they could kind of get some probably weapons down there and start the attack. And pretty much Clooney, to fire his men up, he pretty much says, men, either you get victory or I'm finding some replacements. So then we go back over to Redwall, where Old Man Methuselah comes across the foxes, and they're pretty much, or at least he comes across the female fox, which is the mother, pretty much robbing the place blind, like Constance said. And while they were doing that, he's like, stop! Unfortunately for him, what was waiting behind the door was her son, the younger fox, and he knocks them out. As they do that, they try to attempt to flee the scene, but Matthias sees them and says, stop! Thieves! So a chase begins. Luckily, they managed to lock the doors, and unfortunately, the foxes still kept running away, and they got the guards involved and running after them as they chase them around the monastery. As they do, Cornflower and Old Man Abbott come up and say, Matthias, hold on a minute, it's about Brother Ursula. He was like, no. So we find out later that he is hurt. It's quite serious. He's not gonna die, but it's probably, so he's out of the game though. So to kind of keep Matthias focused, Sunflower tells him, focus, don't let the emotions get the best of you. We gotta think of the next steps. And so that's when they come out and say, okay, so we probably can understand that Clooney is behind this. So what's the next thing we gotta do? That's when one of the moles from earlier comes up and says, hey, listen, I've been sensing something weird underground. And they kind of do a foreshadowing of that earlier in this episode. And that's when Matthias kind of puts it together that they must be digging a tunnel underneath. After learning about that, he then has an idea, and he asks Cornflower what they were having for lunch. She thinks he's trying to eat, but he's not. He devises a plan, and after she said, hot porridge, he goes like, yes. We then switch over to Clooney's cronies coming out of the hole that they've dug. And when they come out, they are met with the residents of Redwall using the porridge that is very, very hot, and they pour it down, so then they have to go back down the hole they came out of and pop out on the other side and go like, run! And that's when you see Clooney like, don't you dare run! No! Don't you dare! So he takes one of his men and he throws him back down there, and then that's when he goes like, what's this? And you just hear the man go, well, you don't hear nothing, you just hear like steam come out. He goes like, porridge! Curses! I was started by fed! So we head back over to Redwall, and when we're back over at Redwall, we see that the old monk said like, I'm very proud of you guys. Porridge, this is amazing. We outsmarted them with porridge, or you outsmarted them with porridge. So yeah, Constance then comes up with the old fox, with the fox woman. It doesn't show what happened to the fox son, but the fox woman, and she says, what should we do with him? So they're trying to figure out what to do, and so that's when Basil gives a couple of ideas, but then he sat there and said, no, let's let them free. Constance's like, what? Are you crazy? And he goes like, oh, no. See, we might not have the best intentions for punishment-wise, but if we let her free, guess who else is going to know she's been let free? Clooney, and let's see how she handles that. So pretty much all were in agreement. And upon being in agreement, she tries to say like, no, I could help. I could be of great use. It ain't gonna happen. So they let her out, let her loose, and unfortunately for her, like a mobster waiting for his money, you see Clooney go like, if I were you, I'd dip. And then that's pretty much with the end of her, because we hear some noises and wouldn't want to be her right about now. Ugh. So then we turn over to the residents of the inside of Redwall, and they turn over and they see that the fox mother's son is escaping through the hole. So they kind of just give up and decide not to chase him because it's not worth it. He comes out on the other side. Upon coming out the other side, he thinks he's scot-free. He goes like, I made it. They'll never catch me. And that's when we see the snake-like being Asmodeus. And so pretty much you could guess what happened next to the poor fox. When I say poor, I don't know. Either way, you gotta put a monk in critical state to the point where he might be, plant food, fish food. So can't draw too much sympathy there, buddy. Yeah. Then we switch back over to Redwall, and Matthias is looking over the yonder and the episode. Overall, great episode. Again, truly this feels more like a play than a TV show, and I am loving every bit of it. I love that Constance is, honestly, I think Constance is my favorite because I just love that she kind of helps guide everyone in the right direction. Her and Basil, it seems like. Constance also comes across as the person where she's the battle hard veteran. She knows what's going on. She knows when to attack, when not to attack. She also knows that you can't leave with vengeance. You have to leave with a thought of protection instead. So I'm enjoying that. Matthias trying to finding out that he's a bigger deal than what he thought he is, or he's coming to terms. Well, he hasn't come to terms with it. He's just finding out what is happening with him. Overall, I have nothing against the episode. Of course, a lot of it's kid-like because, again, this is a kid's show. But for me, a grown adult to still enjoy this, honestly, if you're a fan of animation, you're a fan of storytelling, it might be basic, but honestly, it does a lot of things that a lot of stories nowadays, especially kids shows, don't do. And I'm loving every part of it. I can't wait for the next episode. Again, still a fire watch. Go sit down. It's on Tubi, guys. Come on now, you can't beat that. And it's free, so good entertainment. Overall, thanks for watching. I hope you guys have a great day, and I'll catch you later. Peace.